Hello, friends. If you're over 60 and you've been snacking on certain nuts thinking they're boosting your brain health, I have some urgent news that might shock you. Four popular nuts that most seniors eat every single week are quietly damaging your memory, accelerating cognitive decline, and increasing your dementia risk more than you ever imagined. But here's the good news. Four other nuts can actually reverse that damage, protect your brain cells, and keep your mind sharp well into your 80s and 90s. The difference between these two groups could determine whether you stay mentally clear or struggle with memory loss in the next decade. My name is Dr. Amanda Wells, and I'm a specialist in brain health and cognitive wellness for seniors. Welcome to the Dr. Amanda Wells channel, where we talk about real, science-backed strategies to keep your mind as young and vibrant as possible. I've spent years studying how nutrition affects the aging brain, and what I'm about to share with you today comes from recent research that's changing everything we thought we knew about nuts and brain health. I'm going to show you exactly what the latest studies have observed, which nuts are stealing your mental clarity, which ones are protecting it, and what really changes when you make the switch in just 4 to 8 weeks. Here's what we're covering today. First, I'll reveal the 4 dangerous nuts that trigger inflammation, oxidative stress, and brain cell damage. Some of them might be sitting in your pantry right now. Then, I'll introduce you to the 4 protective nuts that flood your brain with omega-3s, antioxidants, and compounds that fight dementia. Finally, I'll give you a simple brain-boosting nut mix recipe and a checklist you can save and use every single day. Here's a quick fact to get us started. Studies show that seniors who regularly consume certain types of nuts have up to 40% better cognitive function compared to those who don't, but only if they're eating the right ones. Eating the wrong nuts, especially those high in omega-6 fatty acids and rancid oils, can accelerate memory decline faster than sugar or processed foods. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, what's your name, how old are you, and where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments below so I can get to know this amazing community better. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a video that could change your brain health forever. All right, let's get started. Let's start with the shocking truth that most doctors won't tell you. Not all nuts are created equal, and some of the most popular ones sitting on grocery store shelves right now are quietly damaging your brain with every handful you eat. I know this sounds dramatic, but stick with me. The science behind this is solid, and once you understand what's happening inside your brain, you'll never look at these nuts the same way again. Dangerous nut number 1, peanuts. Now I know what you're thinking. Wait, peanuts? I've been eating peanut butter my whole life. Here's the problem. First, peanuts aren't technically nuts at all. They're legumes, which means they grow underground and are far more susceptible to mold contamination. This mold produces something called aflatoxins, which are toxic compounds that damage brain cells, trigger inflammation, and have been linked to increased risk of cognitive decline in older adults. Studies have observed that chronic low-level aflatoxin exposure can accelerate neurodegeneration. Second, most peanuts you buy are roasted in cheap, highly processed oils loaded with omega-6 fatty acids. When these oils are heated to high temperatures, they create oxidative stress in your body, and your brain, which is 60% fat, takes the biggest hit. That oxidative stress kills neurons, clouds your thinking, and speeds up memory loss. If you're eating salted, roasted peanuts from a jar or commercial peanut butter with hydrogenated oils, you're feeding your brain inflammation every single day. Dangerous nut number 2, cashews. These creamy, delicious nuts seem harmless, right? But here's what most people don't know. Cashews are almost always roasted in inflammatory vegetable oils like soybean oil, canola oil, or sunflower oil, all of which are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. Your brain needs a balanced ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, ideally around 1:1 or 1:4. But the modern Western diet has pushed that ratio to something like 1:20 or even 1:30, and cashews are a big part of the problem. When you flood your brain with omega-6, it triggers chronic inflammation, which is one of the primary drivers of Alzheimer's disease and vascular dementia. On top of that, cashews are naturally lower in protective antioxidants compared to other nuts, so you're getting the bad fats without the brain-protecting compounds that balance them out. If you've been eating cashews thinking they're a healthy snack, it's time to rethink that choice. Now let's talk about the real-world impact of eating these nuts regularly. I've worked with countless seniors who came to me complaining about brain fog, forgetfulness, and feeling mentally sluggish by mid-afternoon. When we looked at their diets, almost every single one of them was snacking on peanuts or cashews daily, sometimes multiple times a day. One gentleman, let's call him Robert, was 68 years old and couldn't remember his grandchildren's names anymore. He was terrified he was developing dementia. But when we eliminated peanuts and cashews from his diet and replaced them with the protective nuts I'll tell you about later, his mental clarity came back within 6 weeks. He told me it felt like someone turned the lights back on in his mind. That's not a miracle. That's what happens when you stop poisoning your brain with inflammatory fats and toxic compounds. So here are the warning signs to watch for if you've been eating these nuts regularly. Do you feel foggy-headed or mentally tired a few hours after eating them? Do you notice your memory getting worse over time, especially for recent events or names? Do you struggle with word recall or feel like your thoughts are moving through mud? These are all signs that inflammation is taking over your brain. The good news is, it's reversible, but only if you stop the damage and start feeding your brain the right nutrients. Coming up next, I'm going to reveal the other 2 dangerous nuts you need to avoid, and then we'll dive into the 4 protective nuts that can turn everything around. Let's keep going, because these next 2 dangerous nuts might surprise you even more. And chances are, you've been eating at least one of them without realizing the hidden damage it's causing. Dangerous nut number 3, pistachios. Now, I know pistachios seem like a healthy choice. They're green, they're fun to crack open, and they're everywhere. But here's the hidden danger. Most pistachios you buy at the store are heavily salted, roasted in inflammatory oils, and often stored improperly, which means they can develop mold and rancidity before they even reach your pantry. Just like peanuts, pistachios are susceptible to aflatoxin contamination, especially when they're grown in hot, humid climates and not stored correctly. But there's another issue that's even worse: the processing. Commercial pistachios are often roasted at extremely high temperatures, which destroys any beneficial nutrients they might have had and creates advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, which are compounds that accelerate aging in your brain and body. And let's talk about that salt for a second. Excessive sodium intake, especially from processed, salted nuts, raises blood pressure, and high blood pressure is one of the biggest risk factors for vascular dementia and stroke. When you're munching on a bowl of salted pistachios while watching TV, you're not just snacking. You're slowly damaging the delicate blood vessels in your brain that keep oxygen and nutrients flowing to your neurons. Dangerous nut number 4, pecans. This one might shock you because pecans are often marketed as a superfood, and they're a staple in so many desserts and holiday dishes. But here's what nobody tells you. Pecans have one of the highest fat contents of any nut, and most of that fat is polyunsaturated, which means it's extremely unstable and goes rancid very quickly. When polyunsaturated fats oxidize, which happens when they're exposed to light, heat, or air, they create free radicals that attack your brain cells like tiny missiles. And here's the kicker. You can't always taste or smell when pecans have gone rancid, especially if they've been sitting in your pantry for weeks or months. But your brain knows. Every time you eat rancid pecans, you're flooding your system with oxidized fats that damage mitochondria, the energy powerhouses of your cells, and accelerate cognitive decline. On top of that, pecans are naturally high in omega-6 fatty acids, which, as I mentioned earlier, fuel inflammation when they're out of balance with omega-3s. Most doctors don't warn you about this because they're focused on heart health and cholesterol. But the truth is, your brain is far more vulnerable to oxidative damage than your heart. Now let's talk about the cumulative effect of eating these 4 dangerous nuts over time. Imagine your brain is like a beautiful garden. Every day you're either planting seeds that help it grow and flourish, or you're pouring toxic chemicals on it that slowly kill the flowers. When you eat peanuts, cashews, pistachios, and pecans regularly, especially the processed, salted, roasted versions, you're pouring inflammation, oxidative stress, and toxic compounds into your brain day after day, week after week, year after year. At first, you might not notice anything. Maybe you feel a little foggy sometimes or you forget a name here and there. But over time, the damage accumulates. Your neurons start dying faster than your body can repair them. The protective myelin sheaths around your nerve cells break down. The communication between brain cells gets slower and weaker. And before you know it, you're struggling to remember what you had for breakfast, where you put your keys, or the name of that movie you watched last night. This isn't normal aging, my friends. This is accelerated cognitive decline caused by the foods you're eating. But here's the beautiful part. And this is where hope comes in. Your brain is incredibly resilient. It has the ability to heal, to regenerate, to rebuild connections, even in your 70s, 80s, and beyond. And the key to unlocking that healing is replacing those dangerous nuts with the 4 protective nuts I'm about to reveal. These aren't just less bad options, they're actively therapeutic. They fight inflammation, repair damaged cells, boost blood flow to your brain, and give your neurons the nutrients they desperately need to stay strong and sharp. So let's turn the page right now and talk about the good news. The 4 nuts that will protect your brain and give you back the mental clarity you thought was gone forever. All right, here's where everything changes. I'm about to introduce you to 4 nuts that are like medicine for your brain. Natural, powerful, and backed by solid research. These aren't trendy superfoods that'll be forgotten next year. These are time-tested, scientifically validated brain protectors that have been shown to slow cognitive decline, improve memory, and even reverse some of the damage we just talked about. Let's dive into the first 2. Protective nut number 1. Walnuts. If there's one nut that deserves the title of brain food, it's walnuts. And here's why. Walnuts are the only nut that contains a significant amount of alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, which is a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid. Your brain is starving for omega-3s because they're the building blocks of your cell membranes, and they fight the inflammation caused by all those omega-6 fats we talked about earlier. Studies have observed that older adults who eat walnuts regularly show better cognitive function, improved memory recall, and slower rates of cognitive decline compared to those who don't. One study followed seniors for 2 years and found that those who ate just 1 ounce of walnuts per day, that's about 7 walnut halves, had significantly better working memory and processing speed than the control group. But it's not just the omega-3s. Walnuts are packed with polyphenols, which are powerful antioxidants that protect your brain cells from oxidative stress. They also contain vitamin E, melatonin, and folate, all of which support neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections and adapt. When you eat walnuts, you're literally feeding your neurons the fuel they need to stay alive, communicate efficiently, and repair damage. And here's something beautiful. The shape of a walnut even looks like a brain, like nature is giving us a hint. Protective nut number 2, almonds. Almonds are absolute powerhouses when it comes to brain protection, and here's what makes them so special. First, they're incredibly rich in vitamin E, which is one of the most important antioxidants for brain health. Vitamin E protects the fatty membranes of your brain cells from free radical damage, and research has shown that higher vitamin E intake is associated with a lower risk of Alzheimer's disease and slower cognitive decline in seniors. One study observed that people with the highest vitamin E levels had 25% better memory performance than those with the lowest levels. Second, almonds contain L-carnitine and riboflavin, 2 nutrients that support neurological health and have been shown to reduce the risk of cognitive impairment. Third, almonds help stabilize your blood sugar, which is critical because blood sugar spikes and crashes damage your brain over time and increase your risk of dementia. When you eat almonds, they release energy slowly and steadily, which keeps your brain fueled without the inflammatory roller coaster of high glycemic foods. And unlike cashews, almonds have a much healthier fatty acid profile. They're high in monounsaturated fats, which are anti-inflammatory and heart-healthy, and they support better blood flow to your brain. Now, let's talk about the scientific evidence, because I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to see what researchers are observing in real-world studies. Multiple long-term observational studies have found that regular nut consumption, especially walnuts and almonds, is linked to better cognitive function in older adults. One major study published in a leading nutrition journal followed over 15,000 women for 20 years and found that those who ate at least 5 servings of nuts per week had significantly better cognitive function and memory than those who rarely ate nuts. Another study found that eating walnuts improved brain connectivity and information processing speed in young adults and seniors alike. And here's something really exciting. Researchers have found that the polyphenols in walnuts can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and reduce the buildup of beta-amyloid plaques, which are one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. This means walnuts aren't just preventing damage, they're actively helping to clean up the toxic proteins that destroy memory and cognition. So how much should you eat for maximum benefit? The good news is, you don't need to eat a truckload of nuts to see results. For walnuts, aim for about 1 ounce per day, which is roughly 7 walnut halves or a small handful. For almonds, about 23 almonds or 1 ounce is the sweet spot. You can eat them raw, lightly toasted without oil, or soaked overnight to make them easier to digest. The key is consistency. Eating a handful of walnuts and almonds every single day is far more powerful than eating a huge amount once a week. Think of it like watering a plant. You wouldn't drown it once and then ignore it for days. Your brain needs steady, consistent nourishment. And here's a pro tip. Buy raw, unsalted nuts and store them in the fridge or freezer to prevent them from going rancid. This keeps all those precious omega-3s and antioxidants intact and ready to protect your brain. Coming up next, I'm going to reveal the final 2 protective nuts, and then I'll give you my personal brain-boosting nut mix recipe that combines all 4 into one simple daily ritual. Protective nut number 3, Brazil nuts. Now this one is absolutely fascinating because Brazil nuts contain something your brain desperately needs, but most people are severely deficient in: selenium. Selenium is a trace mineral that acts like a bodyguard for your brain cells. It's a critical component of antioxidant enzymes that protect your neurons from oxidative damage, and studies have observed that low selenium levels are strongly associated with cognitive decline, depression, and even increased dementia risk in seniors. Here's what makes Brazil nuts so special. Just 1 or 2 Brazil nuts per day gives you your entire daily requirement of selenium. That's how concentrated they are. Research has shown that seniors with higher selenium levels have better cognitive function, faster processing speed, and lower rates of cognitive decline over time. One study followed older adults for several years and found that those with adequate selenium levels maintained their memory and mental sharpness, while those with low selenium showed significant decline. But here's the important part. You don't want to overdo it with Brazil nuts because too much selenium can be toxic. Stick to 1 or 2 per day. That's it. Think of them as your daily brain insurance policy. They're also rich in healthy fats and vitamin E, which work together with the selenium to create a powerful neuroprotective effect. If you've been feeling mentally sluggish, anxious, or foggy, selenium deficiency could be part of the problem. And just adding 1 Brazil nut to your daily routine could make a noticeable difference within weeks. Protective nut number 4, macadamia nuts. These creamy, buttery nuts might seem indulgent, but they're actually incredible for your brain, and here's why. Macadamia nuts are one of the richest sources of monounsaturated fats, specifically oleic acid, which is the same heart-healthy and brain-healthy fat found in olive oil. Oleic acid has been shown to reduce inflammation, support healthy blood flow to the brain, and protect the myelin sheaths that insulate your nerve cells and allow them to communicate efficiently. When your myelin breaks down, signals in your brain slow down and you experience brain fog, memory problems, and difficulty concentrating. Macadamia nuts help preserve that myelin and keep your brain firing on all cylinders. They're also rich in thiamine or vitamin B1, which is essential for converting glucose into energy for your brain cells. Without enough thiamine, your brain literally runs out of fuel and you feel tired, confused, and mentally drained.
Studies have observed that older adults with adequate B vitamin intake, including thiamine, have better cognitive function and lower rates of brain atrophy. And unlike pecans, macadamia nuts are lower in polyunsaturated fats, which means they're much more stable and less likely to go rancid. They also have a very favorable omega-6 to omega-3 ratio compared to other nuts, so they won't contribute to the inflammation problem. If you want mental clarity that lasts all day long, macadamia nuts are your secret weapon. Now let me give you my personal brain-boosting nut mix recipe that combines all 4 of these protective nuts into one simple, delicious daily habit. Here's what you do. Take 7 walnut halves, about 10 almonds, 1 Brazil nut, and 5 macadamia nuts, and mix them together in a small container. That's your daily dose. Simple, portable, and perfectly balanced. You can eat this mix first thing in the morning with your breakfast, as a mid-morning snack, or even in the afternoon when you need a mental boost. I like to soak the almonds and walnuts overnight in filtered water to make them easier to digest and activate the enzymes that unlock even more nutrients. Just drain them in the morning, pat them dry, and mix them with the Brazil nut and macadamias. You can also lightly toast the walnuts and almonds in the oven at a low temperature, around 250 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes, to enhance the flavor without destroying the nutrients. Add a tiny pinch of sea salt or a sprinkle of cinnamon if you want extra flavor. Some of my clients like to chop up this mix and add it to their morning oatmeal, Greek yogurt, or smoothie bowls. The key is making it a non-negotiable part of your daily routine. Just like brushing your teeth, your brain will thank you for it. Here's how to incorporate these nuts into your daily routine without overthinking it. First, go shopping and buy raw, unsalted versions of all 4 nuts: walnuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, and macadamia nuts. Store them in airtight containers in your refrigerator or freezer to keep them fresh. Every Sunday, portion out 7 daily servings of your brain-boosting mix into small containers or Ziploc bags so you have them ready to grab and go throughout the week. Set a daily reminder on your phone if you need to. Brain nutrition time, or eat your nuts, whatever works for you. Make it a ritual. Pair it with your morning coffee, your afternoon walk, or your evening herbal tea. Consistency is everything. Within 2 to 4 weeks, you should start noticing improvements: clearer thinking, better memory recall, more sustained energy throughout the day, and less of that afternoon brain fog that used to drag you down. And remember, you're not just preventing future decline, you're actively repairing damage that's already been done. Your brain is healing with every handful. That's the power of giving your body the right nutrients at the right time. Friends, if this video opened your eyes to the truth about nuts and brain health, please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now, ring the bell so you never miss a video, and drop a comment below telling me which of the 4 protective nuts you're most excited to add to your routine. Share this video with a friend or family member who needs to hear this message, because the truth is, most people over 60 have no idea that the nuts they're eating every day could be stealing their memory and mental clarity. But now you know better, and knowledge is power. Here's what I want you to remember. Avoid the 4 dangerous nuts: peanuts, cashews, pistachios, and pecans, especially the processed, salted, roasted versions that trigger inflammation and oxidative stress. Instead, embrace the 4 protective nuts: walnuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, and macadamia nuts, and make that simple daily mix I gave you a non-negotiable part of your routine. Within weeks, you'll feel the difference. Your mind will be clearer, your memory sharper, and your brain will have the fuel it needs to stay strong and vibrant for decades to come.
This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. One small choice, repeated every single day, can change the trajectory of your cognitive health for the rest of your life. Always remember, your mind is your greatest asset.